Hey there, everybody. This is Kenny and
Kenny Squared.
with the sports on the Positive Tip podcast, coming to you live on a Sunday evening where there is so many things happening in the world of sports. Kenny, how you doing?
I'm doing okay. I know a lot of people are getting nervous around here because it's almost game time, but
So give me a feel.
it's
Give
good.
everybody a feel, a sense of what's going on there in Cleveland. What's the mood like? Are they confident? What are we thinking about tonight?
I think there's a lot of excitement, but I think also like I think it's like playing with house money. It would be great to beat the Steelers. It would be great to beat the Steelers, especially because they're like I didn't realize this until I moved here, but like Browns and Steelers like are very intense rivals. And of
Yeah.
course, like because of the last few years, like the Steelers are big brother, Browns are little brother. So it would be huge to beat them in their building. But I think at the same time, I think everyone's just excited to actually see the Browns in the playoffs. I think that's been a huge accomplishment for them. And honestly, like I think there's a lot of people that are optimistic that they can pull it off. Um,
Yeah.
a huge hit obviously was losing Kevin Stefanski to COVID, and also they have a few guys that are injured and a couple guys still recovering. So that's going to make it more difficult. But I think also this gives an opportunity for Baker Mayfield, and I think the city has fully embraced him anyway because like this is their best season in a long time. I think that they've really enjoyed having him. But I think if he can pull off a playoff victory, like he'll become like not like LeBron level Cleveland legend, but he will be like he'll be able to go anywhere in Cleveland for free.
Yeah, it's so funny how many commercials he's doing too. It's
Yeah.
like he lives there at the stadium. It's a funny concept. So you said they're playing with house money, and I agree. I think that either way, it's a crazy successful season for them.
Yeah.
But it's just we'll get to the other games in a second, but there's just no guarantees. I mean, the Titans being out shows you that, they were so close last year and here they are now out in the first round. So you definitely want to go as far as you can go. And if they beat the Steelers, they'll really be riding high. Cause like you said, I hadn't realized also until I never thought it was really that big of a rivalry because the Steelers have always been good and the Browns for the last several years haven't been good. But in proximity, the cities are so close together,
Yeah.
which I yeah, which is going to be good. So, um, what do the Browns have to do? The Steelers obviously had about three quarters of a great season, and the last 5 6 games not so much. So, what are some keys do you think to the game of if the Browns are going to beat them?
I think first is establishing the run game early.
Yeah,
Sometimes the Browns have kind of gotten away from that. And I feel like once they get into like that run it down your throat and then do the play action, that's kind of seems to be where Baker does his best work. Um, Also, I think continue to keep the pressure on Big Ben. And I feel like that's kind of basic, but like Ben Roethlisberger's not going to be intimidated by the playoffs. He's been there. It's won 2 Super Bowls.
yeah, he's
But I think
yeah,
like I think they need to make him a little bit more uncomfortable. And also like the Browns secondary is not that good, and Denzel Ward is also going to be out tonight, so they really need that front four, even though Olivier Vernon's not there, to kind of take a little bit of the pressure off the secondary and continue to grow in that way.
yeah. He's been amazing. I think the Giants missed on that one, kind of letting him go, right? So Olivier Vernon, I think the Giants missed on that, but then again, they got rid of all their veterans. But he still had a lot of game in him. He did well with the Giants too. That was odd
Yeah.
to me that they let him go, but they let a lot of guys go for the rebuild, I would guess. Um, and so do you think not having their head coach is going to have a big effect? And And so I don't say this lightly, right? If Mike Tomlin wasn't coaching for the Steelers, that would be a big, big deal. Stefanski, I think, has done a great job. I mean, obviously with the team, but he's there 1 year, so I'm not sure that everything is totally embedded. What kind of effect do you think it'll have with him not being there tonight?
I think it'll have a little bit of an effect. I think as far as like play calling and everything like that, I'm sure
Yeah.
with like, because also the Browns have only practiced once this week because their facilities have been closed, other people getting COVID and whatnot. I do think though that like as far as like the game plan and the play calling, a lot of that's probably already settled, and probably Stefanski did a lot of that even remotely.
Yeah.
I think though, like kind of the in-game leadership might be missed a little bit, but who knows? I think they probably have figured out like how to do things as though Stefanski is there anyway.
Yeah. When you don't practice like that, though, I always wonder what kind of impact that has. I mean, what do you think? Especially in football, just the game is so many different things happening, and things have to be so precise. If I'm running that 10-yard route, I've got to be do it in whatever seconds, and boom, without the practice. But I guess so. I mean, they practice all year, so I often wonder what type of effect that has on players, football players in particular.
Yeah, I don't know, because I feel like sometimes like you hear I remember hearing a story about Plaxico Burress, the year that the Giants won the Super Bowl. Apparently he had like a lot of foot issues and pretty much didn't practice all year. Like he would just show up on game day, manage the pain throughout the week, and kind of go from there. And he said
Yeah.
like it was kind of hard because like some of like the audibles and the play calls at the line were a little hard, but he kind of just did his thing and made it work. I think it depends on the player a lot of times, but I think as like being cohesive, I think it is important to at least like obviously it's important to practice, but I think not
Yeah.
being able to practice will definitely affect them too.
Yeah. I'm not gonna go Allen Iverson, in practice. Um, it's funny you brought up Plaxico. The person probably I hadn't remembered that. The person that comes to mind for me the most is the very, very famous Michael Strahan, Hall of Famer, obviously. And he went out of his way. He just paid the fines to not go to training camp and to just show up on game day. And he had one of his best seasons. He's still the all-time sack leader too, I believe, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I mean, so with some players, I agree. I think with some, it's probably overrated. I think some can just, without practice, still perform even better because their bodies in football just take such a toll. That maybe that rest from practice might actually do them better sometimes. But this time of year, I would imagine all these guys have aches and pains. For
Yeah.
once you get to this time of year. So now you predict a Cleveland win. Are you sticking with that?
Yeah, I gotta at least stick with my city here.
Okay. Oh, it's your city now. Okay.
I don't
All
know
right.
if they're actually gonna win, but I'm sticking with them.
Okay. All right. And listen, I don't have a dog in the race. So if they beat the Steelers, that's all good for me. But if they win, that'll be great. I would love to see that. I love to see when cities are down. All right, let's stick with football for a bit because we're gonna talk New York sports in just a little bit. Anything surprise you from the 4 games that are in so far? And it looks like Saints and Bears are in a pretty close game. But anything surprise you so far with these 4 games?
Honestly, the game that's going on right now is the only one that surprises me.
Oh,
And I think it probably surprising a lot of people. Also, first of all, I didn't know if you knew this. You know the game is simulcast on Nickelodeon?
I thought I saw that. The game that's on now is on Nickelodeon as well. So
Yep.
why Nickelodeon? Just to reach the kids, or?
I guess so, because they have like a lot of like very kiddie things. It's like when Michael Thomas scored the touchdown of like the first touchdown, they had like slime animation going on the field. So I don't know.
That's pretty cool. They probably want
Um,
in football. They're trying to get the next generation into the game. I would guess that's great.
yeah,
And I thought I heard they have a different announcing crew as well, right? On Nickelodeon.
I think so.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah,
No, that's,
so that's
yeah.
interesting. But I think the game itself though, I kind of figured the Saints would roll with that one, but they've looked like not that good. Um and like I did a bad job predicting yesterday. I I picked the Bills, but then I also picked the Seahawks and I was going out on a limb to say Washington, but I probably shouldn't have anyway. I don't think any of the games really surprised me though. Like nothing really that shocking yet. But if the Bears can keep it close, if the Bear that was the other thing. The Bears one of their receivers missed an easy touchdown catch.
Yeah.
Easy touchdown
Oh,
catch.
I didn't see that. Okay. Really?
But
Um.
yeah,
Yeah.
it was a nice like long one. Missed it, but yeah.
Wow. Wow. Um. So what do you make of the Seahawks? I mean, they were 12-4 this year. I mean, what do you make of them losing? I mean, the Rams are good. I mean, I don't want to take anything away from them, but I'm surprised that they lost here in the first round.
I think with them, they were one of those teams like the Ravens were that team last year where they were like red hot in the first half and then like something fell off. I don't know if it was injuries. I don't know if just Russell Wilson kind of hit a wall. But they seem to just kind of hit a wall.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, it does seem weird. I think also their 12-4 record's a little bloated. Like their division's really tough. Really, out of all of the teams, like San Francisco was the worst, but even with them, their injuries. So, but I don't know. That's a hard one.
It is, but so here's what I'll say, and I've said this the last couple of podcasts. I think that they were one of the first teams that had this whole thing, the 12th man. I mean, their fans are just nuts. In fact, I'm not sure if you knew this. They specifically designed that new stadium because they used to play in the Kingdome, I believe, right? But they specifically designed that stadium so that the noise goes straight down on the field the way they designed it. And so obviously Seattle was one of the first cities that COVID hit, and it's still pretty serious. So there obviously still no fans there. I really think they missed that. Especially a game like yesterday. They would have been just I mean, that's what they say. Seattle, how many years have they prided themselves on the 12th man? So that game surprised me. I like how the toughness the Rams showed. Jared Goff, with a broken thumb out there. And the quarterback, Wolford, I think, was the starter. He gets knocked out, but he comes back to be with his teammates, which it's still in uniform after he went and everything. Was that they showed a lot of toughness. Aaron Donald, he should have just put Russell Wilson down. He flips him over and he falls right on his ribs. So but the guy is he's unbelievable. He's just an unbelievable player. He really is.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting. We'll see. We don't have the matchups yet, right, for the second round. But that game is the one that surprised me. I thought you had pulled back Washington when you knew that Alex Smith wasn't gonna play. I thought you had pulled back on Washington, which without Alex Smith, I didn't give them a great chance either. Except I thought that they would have put a little bit more pressure on Brady. But I tell you, the first game, while I'm happy for Buffalo, I said this last week, I would have loved to have seen Phillip Rivers, because look where he brought that team this year, and not that Brissett was a bad quarterback, but this guy is such a good leader. And they came close, they made a couple of bad mistakes, especially on the defensive end. But I just like Phillip Rivers. I'd love to see him in a Super Bowl. I think, but time's running out on him too. I mean, he's definitely got to be up there in age. And I think Eli Manning turned 40, right? So he's got to be close to that.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. How about the game today? Now, I got to call you out here a little bit. there was several weeks ago where you thought Lamar Jackson was like a one-hit wonder. I think I caught
Yeah.
those words there. Um, his performance today. Well, let me shut up. What did you think?
I think he's starting to prove me more and more wrong, which I guess that's okay. Um, I don't know. It still kind of seems like he's a little bit too reliant on his legs, and for me, I worry that that's gonna like it only takes like one bad hit to end that. Like I think of RG3, Colin Kaepernick never was that, but Michael Vick too. Like he was never the same after he broke his leg. Like I do worry about that, but he did prove. I think the Ravens are a very dangerous team. Um, I think they're one of those teams like we talk about this all the time, getting hot at the right time. Like they
Yeah,
seem like they're just about clicking, and that could be if the Browns win, then they're going to Buffalo, the Ravens. If the Steelers win, they're going to see the Chiefs. Honestly, I would love to see another Chiefs Ravens game.
yeah,
Although they've been hyped and they haven't been that good. But
yeah,
but yeah,
yeah.
I will say he's kind of shown because at first he was very like the whole team seemed a little sluggish, and maybe it was because of no preseason and all that. But I don't know. Derrick Henry did not look good today, though. I can say that.
Yeah, yeah. I'm surprised that Tennessee didn't play better, and it was still a close game. I felt flat out that Tennessee was the better team, and I thought they were battle tested from last year. I'm not sure what happened with that. I mean, obviously you got to give Baltimore's defense some credit. I mean, because that guy is just a beast, and but Baltimore's defense really locked them up, and Tannehill. I mean, he made a couple of really great plays, but overall he played okay. So but their defense is what surprised me. I thought that Tennessee's defense would have a plan to shut down Jackson, but Jackson just man, oh man, I don't know how you stop a guy like that. He's when he's on his game like that. I mean, just a little tiny hole, and he just he turns it into like a 25-yard game. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, that touchdown was insane. Like I saw a couple replays, and I don't know how he didn't get like hit or anything. He just like blitzed right through it. It's crazy.
Yeah, yeah. That's super talent, right? When you can run like that and throw the way he does, they're going to be hard to beat. I wouldn't want to play them. They're
Yeah,
certainly hard to beat. All right. So overall, this has been exciting, right? The 3 games each day, and still got one more
yeah,
tonight. This has been it's been pretty exciting. I think the NFL has done a good job here with with COVID and everything. They've really
yeah,
done a good job. So all right, let's have a little fun with and some people may tune out now because we'll just talk New York sports for a little bit because we might be on the upswing. Maybe we might be on the upswing. And so you wanted to talk a little bit about patience, though, when it comes to being. I mean, you and I, you live in Cleveland now, but you're a New Yorker. You grew up here. I grew up obviously in the city in the Bronx. I've been on Long Island over 30 years now. So I'm a New Yorker through and through. Both of us root for the home teams. Specific home teams, but I don't think we ever root against any of the other New York teams unless they're playing our team. So, what did you want to say about being a New York sports fan and having that patience? You heard what I said?
mhm. No, what'd you say?
Oh, no, no worries. I was talking
Okay.
about being a New York sports fan and having that
Yeah.
patience. So, what did you want to say about that? You want to talk about patience and God's patience?
Yeah. I think sometimes like especially as a sports fan, being patient can be very hard. Um, I look at some of the teams that like we'll make it. I'll start with Cleveland. I mean, they went 54 years without, or 52 years without winning a title. And there's a lot of promising teams in there. The Indians of the 90s, a few Cavs teams here and there, the Cardiac Kids, the Browns in like the late 80s. Um, And sometimes it can be very hard to continue to have patience. So then you want like, let's get this guy, let's trade this guy away. And so often, like, everything looks like it might be going to place, but then it doesn't. And I feel like sometimes in our own lives, not just in sports, we tend to get impatient with the things that we're asking for, whether it's like things that we're praying for God to break off of us, things that we're praying for God, like for salvation, God for favor in certain areas. But sometimes, like, God doesn't necessarily always say no, but he's saying be patient. I think of the story of Abraham, who God promised him that he was going to have a son. And that promise didn't happen for almost 25 years. And in that time, like, Abraham tried to take it on to himself. And then the whole drama with Hagar and Ishmael happened. Um, so, like, I think patience is a real important thing. And I think sometimes, like, especially in sports, we tend to get very impatient. Like, you see all the things like, okay, this guy threw 3 interceptions, we got to trade him. Or, man, like, Steph Curry, that guy just doesn't look like he can lead a team.
Yeah.
Really, like, the first couple of weeks, a lot of people were saying that. And then he's dropping 62 and doing all this other crazy stuff.
Yeah.
And I look at our Knicks here. It took a lot of patience. It's been 7 years since they've made the playoffs. It might be more.
Yeah.
A lot of coaches, a lot of really bad teams, a lot of just unwatchable basketball.
Yeah.
But now it looks like they actually have a fairly decent team. Like, Julius Randle looked horrible last year.
Yeah.
Maybe horrible is a bit of a stretch, but he looked really bad. And now he looks like he could be like an early MVP candidate. Austin Rivers has been a great pickup. I feel like RJ Barrett, he's still kind of up and down, but his ups seem a little bit better than his downs were, especially last year. And
Yeah.
a lot of these guys are still young too. So
Yeah.
I think, like, when it comes to patience, New York can tend to be very impatient when it comes to people, when it comes to athletes, but sometimes that patience will pay off at the end. Right now, we're going on 9 years since a New York sports team has won a championship.
Wow.
And it's looking more and more like we might be ending that drought pretty soon here.
Yeah. I hope so.
But I'll ask you about that.
Yeah. All right. So you're asking me, I'm going to talk about the Mets and the trade that they made this week. So you still have to do it on the field. I think we get that. And I'm just hoping, history doesn't repeat itself, because the Roberto Alomar and Carlos Baerga trades with the Indians didn't work out all that well. And it seems like the Mets and Indians seem to be trade partners for some reason, which is odd, So, but Lindor, listen, I mean, you're getting him right in his prime, 27 years old. I just love the way he loves the game, as well. I think that sometimes can be just as important. The enthusiasm. He seems like he's a leader. His stats are just off the charts every single year. He's an all-star. He's obviously a great fielder. And, Carrasco, certainly, I have a place in my heart for him because of his cancer fight. But the guy could still pitch, which is, I think so. The Mets need that. And I think that's caused them to back off a little bit on spending a ton of money on free agents, because it'll be a terrible trade if they can't sign Lindor and keep him here. Then it would be a bad trade, because I do think Ahmad Rosario is going to get better. I think he had a little bit of an off year to last year, but 2 years ago he was really good. And I do think Jimenez is going to be an excellent everyday player. He gets a chance to play every day. So, and who knows what positions they'll put them in. But so I think that I feel good about the Mets. I think that there's a whole new attitude there. They obviously have new owners. I think it's been a long time, obviously, 1986. At least we've been to a couple of World Series. We've gotten to the playoffs a couple of times since then, but it seems like it's disappointment every year. But it's like God teaches us that loyalty too, right? And it's like, You know,
Yeah.
people, I inevitably, at least 10, 20 times a year, I'll get asked. See, you've never been asked this as a Yankee fan, but I'll get asked, how could you still be a Met fan? You know, and I'm like, that's my team. What can I tell you? You know, I mean, I'm just loyal to them, win or lose. And so, you know, you mentioned the Knicks. Again, it's leadership, right? I mean,
Yeah.
the coaches that they've had these last few years, again, we're not saying anything bad. It just they weren't great leaders. They're probably good X's and O's guys, but they're just not good. They just weren't good leaders. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I think Thibodeau has really changed the culture there a lot. I think a lot more than people realize sometimes.
No question. There's no question about it. So I do think. I mean, I don't like to make predictions. It's too early for me to make a prediction on the Knicks. And the Knicks, I think, are playing in Denver tonight. You know, but starting
Yeah.
off 5-4, I'll take that. And I'd like to see them hover around 500 for the year. I mean, that'll be my expectations now. I'm not going to say playoffs or anything like that. I mean, what do you think? Has your expectations now changed?
A little bit. Because, like, I guess I'm a little less leery about, like, thinking, oh, well, things are just going to go down the tubes. Because, like, I was looking at a couple memories on Facebook of me just complaining about how bad the Knicks are. And, like, usually around this time, we're like, okay, so who's good in the college basketball area?
Yeah.
But now maybe they could actually, like, yeah, making the playoffs might still be a little difficult, especially there's a lot of teams in the East that have taken a step up. But I think they could at least, like, go into, like, the East playing games or something like that. I think they at least have a shot. Like you, I'm not going to make, like, a full-blown prediction like, oh, they'll make the playoffs. But I do think, like, being 500 should be a very reachable goal. Hey,
Okay.
heck, I'll take 35 wins, honestly.
Oh, yeah.
I think they can do that, especially if everyone stays healthy.
Yeah, that'll be a big improvement. So let's go to football real quick. And you're a Giant fan. I'm a Jet fan. I'm optimistic about the Jets because they're going to hire a different leader. And I think it'll start there. What's your take on the Giants? The Giants obviously took some steps forward, I think, this year. But obviously they had the big Saquon Barkley injury, and Jones was injured throughout the year. So what's your take on the Giants' future over the next year or two?
I think you mentioned leadership change. I think Joe Judge has shown that he's a good leader in that locker room. And I think also based on the rest of the division, depending on, like, who stays, who goes, who knows what's going to happen with Dak, Carson Wentz, who knows what Washington's doing at quarterback as well. But I think that the Giants have a good shot of winning the division next year. I think they have a good shot of being 500, especially if Saquon Barkley can come back healthy. Even if he's not 100% of what he was beforehand, I think having him there, Daniel Jones continues to grow, maybe try to attract a couple guys here and there. I think the Giants might have something.
Okay. Love hearing that. Your take on the Yankees?
I really hope that they can sign LeMahieu. Honestly, and Tanaka. They said Tanaka, though, it sounds like he's either going to re-sign or he's going back to Japan, which I think is kind of interesting.
Wow. Okay.
But I think regardless, like, the biggest competition for the Yankees in their division was the Rays, and the Rays traded away Blake Snell. So I think they have a good shot of taking the division this upcoming year. I think their biggest thing is health. I think they have a World Series caliber lineup if Gary Sanchez can get his act together a little bit, if Judge and Stanton can actually play 150 games, if they can figure out who's pitching after Garrett Cole, I think they've got a good shot. I think they could take a huge step forward by signing a guy like Trevor Bauer, or even like somebody a little lower, like Corey Kluber.
Yeah,
he was out there. Or re-signing Paxton or Tanaka, but I think they still have a really good shot. I think that we're going to see in the next maybe 2 or 3 years, at least one of these teams has got to win a title for New York.
All right. All right. It's funny. Your key has been LeMahieu all along. Every time I ask you about the Yankees, you say got to sign LeMahieu, and then you
Yeah,
go from there. I think you need the pitching more than LeMahieu, but I think that you bring LeMahieu back, that also solves a lot of the stuff there in the infield and everything. And I think he also is such a leader on that team. So we'd definitely love to see him back. But I feel they'll bring Tanaka back, and I think they'll get LeMahieu back. And then I think they'll acquire somebody, even like you said, whether it's Bauer or Corey Kluber. Actually, I saw that the Mets were talking to him as well. I mean, two-time Cy Young Award winner. You might be rolling the dice a little bit with his injuries, but I'd roll that dice. I mean,
yeah.
yeah, I definitely roll that dice. Well, we'll get ready to wrap up here, but I want to say this. I think that while it seems like, if you live in New York, you're not patient. And I think the opposite has been a little bit true for sports teams because while we could be hard on sports teams, aside from the Nets, the Knicks still, when they were bad, they always sold out. It was always very hard for us to
Yeah,
get a ticket, right? So,
that's
so
true.
part of that is a corporate thing. I get that, but a lot of that is the loyal Knicks fans still go. The Jets and Giants always still sell out. The fans still show up for their games when fans were showing up. Yankee fans still showed up, and it's been a long time since the Yankees were bad. But even when they were kind of mediocre a couple of years here and there, the fans still came. The Mets sometimes that could
Yeah,
be a little bit weird if the Mets don't win. Sometimes Met fans will stop going, But I think overall we actually have been really kind of patient,
yeah.
So all right, let's go ahead and get some music on here in the background. We'll wrap up. Really exciting stuff. I think a lot of great things to come. Going to be exciting next week. We'll talk about the NFL playoffs. Obviously, we'll be down, getting down to some teams here, and get. I guess by almost this time next week, we'll know the conference championship. Final four teams, so to speak. Ohio State, Alabama next week. So your state continues to have a lot of excitement. They've got the Browns tonight. They've got Ohio State tomorrow. I think Alabama
Yeah.
is going to win, but you know, um, we'll see. So, Kenny, why don't you sign us off? And any final words?
All righty. Well, first go Browns. Hopefully they can actually pull this off.
Yeah.
But this is Kenny Squared End
Kenny.
with sports on the positive tip. We will see you guys next week.
All right. All right. Awesome. 33 minutes. That's not bad. Let's see.